Good morning again. You guys are in for a real treat. We've got fantastic expertise here to talk about these topics. We're probably gonna reach out to the crowd fairly often. A lot of times I've learned that if we wait till the end for questions, we don't have time for any questions. So that's probably kind of the way we'll go. But we'll start off with a few questions about kind of ROI, and because in this world of soft growth and markets, finding ROI, making sure that you can have ROI is really becoming more critical. So sort of ROI that is real and recognized. So within your organization, how has the ROI expectation changed over the last few years? So start with Greg. Sorry.
Good question. It's become much more important for us as an OEM building industrial forklifts. Anytime we look at buying or building a software product, which is what most of the vendors are offering here, we typically have to have 24-month payback, which is different than a machine. If you're trying to buy a laser welder or cutter, it's got to be 12-month payback at Crown. So that's a little bit different, but from a software standpoint, it's been 24, and that used to be up to 5 years, 5 to 10 years ago when I first started. So it's definitely faster, if that helps.
Yeah, I know it's and the vendors all know that well, right? Having to prove they can provide that value in a short period of time, right?
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. So since we're a custom software vendor, we see we put a lot of ROIs in front of our clients. And what we've noticed over the last couple of years is that a 3-year time horizon for the ROI calculation is being used more frequently, similar to what was just said. And 5-year used to be the standard, right? And I think it's due to the rapidly changing ecosystem that we're seeing, which is pushing us to a quicker time to ROI when we're looking at those outlooks. So,
yeah, very good.
I think I would just add, from a Geotab perspective, I'm going to take more of a customer lens, and our customers expect immediate ROI, right? From the very first touch point they have with us from a sales flow process, they want it to be a good use of their time. To cultural changes that are required for change management, bringing in new technologies. No customer is the same, no integration is the same, no implementation is the same. So when we look at ROI, it's a customer saying, hey, I want this to work for my organization today. I know my procurement teams have the long-term benefits associated with that we need to deliver, but we can't get there unless everybody's a part of that journey.
Yeah.
One more thing, Marc, on ROIs is to the OEMs that are out there, extremely hard in field service to identify and track ROI, in my opinion. I've been doing this a couple years. But if you're going to try to get and buy a product that's going to make your technicians more efficient, a lot of times technicians don't want to be more efficient. They really don't. They got their day set. They're going to do 4 to 5 jobs a day. If you provide them with technology that can do 6, they're probably still going to do 4 to 5 a day. Because what they do is the efficiency. I think you have to blend efficiency where the company takes some efficiency, but you have to give it to your technician too. A little more downtime, like Lori was just saying. Some of them make their day a little easier. Otherwise, it won't work, in my opinion. So the software companies out there help us OEMs identify true ROI, and then how does it hit the bottom line? For us, it's for field services work orders per day. Right? You can do a lot of really cool stuff, but if you can't help the OEM measure that, it's going to be really hard to sell.
I think that's a great segue into some of the things you've been doing, Sara. And so how does your organization ensure people adopt and sustain new technology solutions, not just implement them?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that I have a pretty big passion for. So prior to my role as the Service AI Program Owner for Waters Corporation, I was actually the Director of Global Change Enablement. So they put their Change Enablement Director in charge of their AI programs. So to say I have a passion for change management is an understatement. Oftentimes in the past, we've seen where the implementation of these tools is seen as the finishing line, where really it's the start. Your ROI is not recognized when the switch gets flipped to turn on the new technology. Your ROI is realized when people start doing what they're supposed to be doing, when they adopt this new change, this new behavior, this new way of working. So often when I'm put in these situations with these projects, I ask myself, what percentage of their ROI is dependent on people doing something new? Oftentimes, that's a very high percentage, right? And in those situations, you need to have a structured change management methodology to ensure that you're bringing your people along with you. So what I use is the ADKAR method through ProSci, stands for professional science. So I can't take credit for this model, but it's the one I live by. One of the reasons I also love it is it's backed by science, which in my world is my is my cup of tea. But this is backed by over 20 years of research on people, right? And they found that people go through 5 elements to realize successful change. And these need to go in order for people to fully adopt the change. The first one is awareness. People need to understand why. Why am I being asked to do this? And that kind of ties into the second one, which is desire. Not only why am I doing this, but I want to do this. The third one then is knowledge, right? So that's your training plan, and that's one often people just jump right to, right? They skip the awareness and desire, and there's the reason that that's in front of a timed model, right? People have to understand why. Like, have you guys ever been in a training class and didn't know why you were there? Didn't retain a whole lot, did you? The fourth is ability. So even if you have the knowledge of how to do something, you may not be able to put that knowledge into practice. And that can be mental barriers, physical barriers, whatever it may be. You have to understand what barriers are your teams going to encounter during this change. And then the final one, which is often the most overlooked, is reinforcement. So like I said, go live is not the stop, it's the start, and we need to continuously reinforce all of those things. Why is this important? What's in it for you? The knowledge sharing, all of those things, and making sure that we enable our frontline managers to give space to our field service engineers, expert centers, whoever it may be. We have to give them the space to learn this new technology, or otherwise we're not going to be able to get that ROI.
Thank you. Very insightful. When you go into a company and you start trying to drive that, in your experience over the past few years, how many times has the end users been the driver of the technology decision, and how many times is the leader the driver of the technology decision, and how does that impact the end users' desire to use something? Have they felt like maybe something's getting pushed down their throat, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a good question, because oftentimes these are decisions that are made at a very high level of which technology solution that we're going to go with, and we like to pull people into that process, right? So my background with Waters, I've actually been with them for 14 years, and I was a field service engineer, believe it or not. I carried toolbox is still in my garage if you guys don't believe me. I was a field service engineer. I was a frontline manager before taking over the change enablement role. So we found a lot of value in pulling our people up and upskilling who we have versus trying to seek external talent to come in. Now, don't get me wrong, external talent is always good to shake things up, but when we're talking about driving change, we need people in those roles that have done it, that have lived it. So that's kind of how we get overcome. Like, yes, they don't get to be as part of the decision-making process, but we also do pull them into how we're building it as well.
Very good.
And if I could just add to that, I think, we're starting to see a bit of an inflection point, particularly in telematics, where, you've got your early adopters who have managed their fleets. They have their digital twin of their fleet on their screen. They know what's going on. And we're now getting to a phase where, we're getting into some of those laggers. And I think the important part there is that, you can't just say from an organization, you're going to use this tool. You have to get the technicians engaged with the tool. You have to put it in front of them as you would, throughout that journey, I think. And then from there, it's getting that buy-in, because if it's a procurement team telling you to purchase or acquire a certain software, and your employees don't like it, they're used to Excel spreadsheets, let's just say, or their routing in dispatch is a little bit archaic. Having a new technology is daunting, and if you can't get buy-in from the ground up, you're not going to be successful at the end of the day. So we're starting to see a big shift where, your fleet managers, your day-to-day technicians have a bigger say in what companies are acquiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. It's really easy to dream up new technology solutions in the boardroom, and there's a lot that goes into implementing a new technology. And because I think that journey is so long and difficult and has so many moving pieces, sometimes our field technicians get forgotten. And I think the most successful implementations we've been a part of is when they're actually a part of the journey from the beginning. They're a part of that buying committee. Well, they may not have the largest say, but they should have a say. And when they do, I think you get a lot better adoption, like was mentioned.
Yep. Very good. So a couple times it's been mentioned sort of this buy versus build or blend or and that sort of thing. So how do you at some point, we're going to make a decision, buy versus build on some solution that we need to bring in. Do you guys tend towards one or the other, or is it kind of individual based on the project, your product or the solution? And so what are the factors that go into that decision, and how's that come about? So Greg, I know you probably have some insight into this.
Well, coming from a culture of a company that builds everything, right? I think every manufacturer has to make that decision themselves. Crown is a little bit unique, where we make 85% of our products from scratch. We don't make chain, oil, and wheels, but we're starting to make wheels, so we're getting there. So we're highly vertically integrated, and we've been that way on the software side and on the lift truck side. We're changing as an organization. We're starting to outsource more software, which is good. We don't try to build our field service software anymore. We're actually, buying that, which is good, and implementing that right now with IFS, actually, globally. But it's hard. It's really hard. And it depends, again, what your culture is of your company. We always start off with, we will always build it first unless we can buy it better. So is it going to last longer? Is it more? Those types of things. But I'll give you a great example of a reason we didn't. In field service specifically, we're going to change our our service parts branch. We call it our factory store. Complete overhaul of our business system with IFS. We decided to keep our mobile service platform that we hand built. Why did we do that? Because we could have went with IFS, and I'm sure it's fantastic. I've seen the demo here many times. IFS, you can buy me a drink later for all this coverage I give you wherever you are. But that's a great example, is we kept our hand-built one because of technician change, what she just talked about. We did not want to change their day-to-day work order, how they interact with it, because it was too much change for what they do every day. We know there's going to be a lot of back-end change that we just bought and implement globally, but we didn't want to do that completely across the organization. Just one example of build versus buy, what we've done.
Yeah, we like to look at this build versus buy problem kind of through three lenses. So the first one, we like to call it the uniqueness factor. So how unique is the problem that you're trying to solve? Right? If it's not a very unique problem, there's probably lots of great products that are available to solve it. If it's a really niche problem, core business process that you want to enable with technology, maybe that makes sense to build. After that, you have to look at your organization's technical competency. Do you have the skill sets internally or with solid vendors to be able to build? If the answer is no, then maybe products make more sense. And then the last piece is control. So how important is control to you? Do you want to control your technology roadmap 100%? Or are you okay relying on vendors and products and their roadmap and hoping that it aligns with where you're trying to go? And so when you look at those three pieces, I don't think you have to make that decision kind of entirely organizational wide. It's more, with each problem you're facing, you take these three lenses and then say, okay, what fits best for this particular situation? I think that's kind of what you're saying, Craig, as well. So.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, I mean, I think from a Geotab and a customer perspective, we're connecting 5 million vehicles worldwide. We've got, in the field service segment alone, about 13,000 customers. We look at our ecosystem as sort of a build as well as a buy in terms of how we offer our product and servicing. And what I mean by that is we know that, again, there's no one solution that fits all. We think we've got the best telematics platform in the world, but we know that there are partners in this room, camera providers as an example, who fit the need of a customer a little bit better. So that's why we've developed an open ecosystem where if we don't have the right solution, maybe you're already using a particular product, we integrate with it. So it puts the customer at the center. It puts our service offering around that, and then at the end of the day, we augment that with particular customer needs.
Very good. Yeah, very good. So, any questions from the audience? We've covered some things on ROI and buy versus build and some of those decisions. Any specific questions around some of those you'd like the panel to address? Yeah. Well, even my second day, people usually have a question. All right.
Oh, no, I thought I heard.
All right. I know they'll come. Yeah. So, oh, there we go. All right.
Good morning. With so many vendors, what goes into the buying criteria? Is it relationships, technology? Just would love to understand kind of where your head is when you're looking at buying different technology from vendors.
Ooh, it's a good one.
All of the above.
For me specifically, it's the support after. Of course, it's the technology, what it's going to do and what problem it's going to solve, right? What they focus on. What are you really trying to solve? But do they support you after? How big are they? Can they? Are they global? We've had a lot of implementations that have gone bad after 2 years because they got sold off or something happened, and we're left to hold the bag. So you have to be really, really careful on who you select and what their long-term longevity has been, is what we look for. So most of the vendors like here that we've partnered with have been around for a while, and we make sure that they can support it long-term. So we're visiting their customers and asking questions, right? How are you supported? Those types of not easy questions when the vendor's there with you, but and what's going bad and how have they fixed it? Things like that, because you can't afford not to.
Very good.
Yeah, so we're obviously a vendor, so it's tough to answer this question. But what I've seen, kind of as we're a software consultancy, so we've connected a lot of our clients with different software vendors. What I've noticed is kind of doubling down on what Craig's saying, but there's this element of, do you trust this vendor to do what's right for you in the long run and when things get hard? Because it's easy for vendors to serve you well when everything is good, but when things go bad or when things get challenging, are they going to stay there for you and are they going to back you up? And a lot of that comes down to having developed that relationship over years and not over a couple of sales calls. So something we've noticed.
And just building off of that, I think it comes down to like knowing the problem that you want to solve. Every vendor in this room will pitch you a solution that they think is right for you, but not understanding your core problem is sort of the starting point for everything, right? So when you think about in field service from a day-to-day delivery perspective, do you have the right routing solution in place? Is it getting the right driver to the right place at the right time most effectively and efficiently? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but if you don't know you have that problem, you're never going to solve it with technology.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. We were looking for a partnership, right? So we know that this space is evolving so fast that we wanted someone by our side to go through this with us. And that's really what sold it for us was, the partnership that we found, and like to your point, the support afterwards, because implementation is not the finish line, it is the starting point. So the support that we've received after sale has been even more important.
Very good. So, okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
How do you ensure global standardization versus regional differences?
It's a good one. Alignment, right? Making sure everyone is aligned across the globe in various cultures, geographies, leadership styles. That is a hard one to crack. And I'll just say from my perspective, that's one of the reasons why having the experience I've had within the corporation, so I can speak to it, to understand those different flavors of field service across the globe, right? So when I talk to my colleagues in China and Japan and Korea, I can understand, maybe I haven't lived it, but I can respect the challenges that they have. I can respect that in India, our field service engineers may have to take the bus, or something like that. So they may not have, the availability to listen to a podcast while they're driving in the car. I don't know, but having that firsthand knowledge of what your teams are going through so you can better understand those variations, because sometimes they can be valid, right? And you do need to accommodate, like we find all the time, we need to accommodate something special in China. But without that firsthand knowledge of what your teams are doing, and if you haven't done it yourself before in the organization, my advice is get out there, get into the front line, go see it for yourselves, and invite the front line to come see what you do as well. I was actually able to have 4 managers from California join me yesterday, so they got to see what I get to do. And they came away with a whole new perspective of AI and all this technology advancements that we're trying to launch.
Yeah, just build on that. Sorry, you go ahead first.
No, go ahead.
I insist.
Okay. Well, the one
Nice
thing,
panel.
the one thing that we see is it's important to have like a long-term product vision for what you're trying to achieve. So at Enterbridge, we build solutions. That's what we do. So usually all of our engagements start with this like larger scale, long-term, all right, what's generally the vision for this product and where it needs to go. Obviously, a lot of different regions are going to have different needs and requirements, but there's usually some core elements that can be standardized. You skip the first phase, if you skip creating your product vision phase, that's when you really get into trouble. You start reworking things. You have no core that's going to anchor the solution across your organization, and things can get messy quick. You do rebuilds, etc. So that's something that we do a lot with our clients to ensure safety there.
And just back to the original question about global mindsets. I think it's important, like for a global company like Geotab, that while we do have an overarching strategy and vision, we execute that regionally. Whether you're in the UK or the EU, whether you're in LATAM, whether you're in North America, we have people on the ground there who understand the cultural nuances, who understand the technical nuances that are unique to every region. So that's where you also get a lot of shared learning. So you may start focused on, the American market. You learn something that happened in UK. Maybe it's a keyless solution and you want to be able to get drivers to cars via keys to drivers as quickly as possible. Well, that solution may work in the UK, but it may not be ready for North America, right? So that's where we're trying to use the intelligence on the ground to dictate the solutions that we customize for our customers.
And I think the key is flexibility as well. Just something as simple as GDPR. If you look across Europe, even though it's the exact same standard, every country looks at it a little bit differently. In Germany, they're going to be way more strict, and you might have to build something or provide some level of security that France may not care about. So that opportunity to deliver across Europe and North America as well is to just be flexible enough to provide whatever they need in terms of their culture or requirements, regulations.
And I'll give you like a real world example as well. Like we rely a lot on carriers, network coverage, 5G, 4G, 2G, LTE, fallbacks. It's different region to region, country to country, zone to zone. In Canada, as an example, we've got a vast north that doesn't have a lot of coverage, but we have customers there. We're also working down in Antarctica with the British Arctic Survey, or Antarctic Survey, where they have zero coverage and everything relies on satellite. So there's technical differences, there's regional differences from a regulatory perspective. There's a lot of things you have to consider when looking in different markets.
I think just, all of our conversation sort of kind of goes towards this speed to value model, and which is critical. Obviously that's part of ROI, but there's so many other things that the speed to value can prove for you. So what, when you guys are looking at a solution, what metrics do you use when kind of looking at speed to value, and what are some of the ways you have kind of improved that as you've built out solutions in your organization?
I think it depends on the technology, of course. I think of call center systems, if you're thinking about that. From a field service standpoint, you're looking at resolution tickets and all that great stuff on lowering ticket times, those types of things. When you have field service tools for technicians, you're trying to get more work orders per day, even though they may not want to, right? That's a critical element for us. Response time, first call fix ratio, all the standard metrics, right? I think you'll see globally. But back to the global question, every part of the world's different. So you have regional KPIs. I'm not a big fan of one process for the globe. I'll try to answer maybe some of the question and yours at the same time. I am not a fan of that, even though at Crown we have a lot of people that fix everything with a process because we're a manufacturer, right? Just fix it with a process. And that doesn't work with people. So from a practical standpoint, we have regional KPIs, because if we do a one global KPI, you're trying to figure out why is the first call fix ratio in Brazil 99% when they don't carry parts on the van? How is that possible? Right? So there's things like that just doesn't make sense globally. So you have to be adaptive at that point. But that's another KPI that we focus on. So,
Great.
I think just on that as well, like employee satisfaction, I think is one of the most overlooked things. But if you have a technician in the field who doesn't believe in the technology that they're using, the data that they bring back for you to analyze later is going to be no good, right? So starting from an ROI perspective with the employees who use the tools is critically important. From there, reducing average handling time, first fix rates, we all talk about those in this industry as their kind of common practice. But having a central place to measure all that is critically important.
And it really needs to tie back to your business case. Like, what did you start out to achieve? Are you achieving that thing? For us, it was cost avoidance for shotgunning of parts, right? So making sure that we had the right part for the right service visit at the right time, and we're not just ordering the whole truck.
Very good.
Yeah, I think going back to the first question too, I think Craig hit on one of the big ones, which is your payback period. How quickly are you paying back your initial investment as a good measure of how quickly, essentially you're getting your value.
Yeah.
And to the second piece of your question, what do you do to enhance that speed? I think breaking your projects and your implementations into the correct phases can help accelerate the rate at which you get value. So as an example, we had a customer who had a project essentially at a high level. There was an analysis phase, and then there was an implementation to automate some of the things from the findings of the analysis. And we did the analysis phase first, and upon completion of that, there was a half dozen items that were identified that could be implemented today manually before it was automated that actually paid for the entire project. So if you get your phasing right and you implement in the correct kind of iterative way, you can generate value sometimes before your whole project's even complete.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's probably going to be our last topic. Let's finish on this, and it's about ecosystem integration. And I don't think there's any vendor here that believes that they are the kind of the record final solution in their customers. We're all integrate with the ecosystem around us, and you have to in order to survive. But it's a major component. So what sort of tools, both process and technical, have you put in place to make sure that you're effectively integrating with the ecosystem around you? Logan, that might be for you. That's probably a lot
Yeah.
what you guys do, so that might be a good.
Yeah, one of the things I've found, like the challenges with integration are not usually like actually building the integrations. That's usually not that challenging of a problem. The tricky piece is a lot of them are handled piece by piece, one by one, without like a bigger picture point of view. And so then the governance of all those integrations can be super challenging. So just from a process standpoint, having some type of process to govern all your integrations is super useful. So that could be as simple as a governance committee that meets monthly, right? So you can talk about changes that are coming down and things that may be impacted there. Or it could be as simple as having, email communication and blasts for impacted parties. But the governance of the integrations is a big piece. And then if you can, having a little bit more holistic perspective on your integrations is useful too. So for instance, when we work with our clients, we have a integration platform and framework that we use. So we can reuse different pieces of integration so you're not rebuilding everything from the ground up. Those are some of the ways that we help our clients integrate with their systems.
Very good. More questions about integrations or anything else we've talked about, or stuff we haven't talked about?
I would just say like the
Right.
discovery phase is like the most important part, right? When you first sit down with a customer, you ask them what problems they want to solve, what solutions they already have today, and then how can you integrate with them. And I think, the importance of open API ecosystems where you can plug and play, curated solutions becomes critically important in field service because everybody's using a different fleet management system from a maintenance perspective. Everybody's got their own CRM or dispatch tool. So understanding what customers have today and then how you can complement those and, in a lot of cases, build a better product is what we try to do at Geotab.
It's challenging integrations. I think about it two different ways as Crown because we sell forklifts, right? We have telematics, so we tend to integrate with some customers' business systems. So we have a whole team that does that, similar to what you guys do. But when we buy certain systems and we try to utilize it, or our business systems, we've run into a real challenge where we've built. If our engineering team is not building fast enough, then we get it done on the customer support side. So, which could mean file sharing, reporting, because customers want data off their lift trucks and how it works. So we've built for many, many years systems to do that. Thousands of different, could be API connections. So now we're hitting mainline systems, and we don't want to do that. So right now, Marc, we're in a data platform building process, and we're building ourselves. We're not buying it, of course. A data platform that IT is building. And they really don't know what they're doing, right? Because they're IT, right? Sorry for IT people in the room. But they don't understand what our problem is, so we're trying to integrate as much as we can. And it could be a 10-year project, which is crazy to rebuild all that type of stuff. So we also at Crown now we've got, I think on my team alone, Colin's here, one of my guys, I think we have 10 BI writers just on his team that are just writing reports, not only for customers, but ourselves. So we can say, I want SAP for manufacturing, I want this sales system or CRM, I want all that data in one BI system. So we're doing that all ourselves, almost like a massive reporting system for all of Crown. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but it's a way to do it.
Yeah.
So you got to invest in that if you want data real time and pushes and things like that. That's what we're doing from an integration standpoint. And it's hard for our vendors when they sell us a product because we're trying to integrate from day one. So,
what? Last question. What? Over the last few years, what's an example of a solution or a component that has just gone extremely well, very smoothly in the implementation? And was there something different, or what was it about that implementation and rollout that made it so easy?
Yeah, I can say, so I got my first big project when I joined HQ from the field was the deployment of Salesforce. And that went okay. I learned a lot in that process about change management. And when it came time for us to roll out our AI solution, what I really had learned from that experience was that change management is not just a soft skill or a nice to have. Like I saw it with the Salesforce deployment of where it worked and where it didn't. So for me, change management is a leadership strategy of how to mitigate the risk of your digital investments, right? And if you're not taking that into your planning, into your strategy, that vision has to include the people. So for me, for us rolling out AI was a good example. You hear more about that afterwards, but it didn't come overnight either, right? It was through some learnings. It was through many roundtables of talking with our frontline about what worked well and what hadn't. So it's a process.
Yeah, it's just a level of discipline that is missed in that.
And Sarah,
You have the pressures around you to get something done.
Sorry. I was gonna say it's interesting you mentioned AI, and I hate using the word interesting. I just use it twice. But I think one of the things that we've done at Geotab is we've rolled out our AI assistant ACE, which allows you to really just ask any question about your fleet that's on your mind. But in order for us to make that better, we actually had to roll out AI tools within the organization so that every frontline person, every salesperson, every product person, every marketing person understands how we can use AI to make our days better, and that only helps our products get better as we evolve them.
Very good.
Yeah, we have the benefit of seeing dozens of implementations, large and small, every year. So I won't speak to one specific. I'll talk kind of themes across all of them that I've noticed over the last year. There's kind of three common themes where we had really great success. First is really robust product definition and discovery and requirements gathering. The second would be involving the users of the software early in the process. We talked about that earlier. And then the third is having great vendors and internal team members who are supporting the projects. If you got those three things, we've seen great success in projects that kind of have those three elements.
Great advice. Very insightful. Well, I think that's it for our time. Panel, thank you so much for joining us here. Very valuable and